Welcome to this module on FlutterFlow. In this lesson, we'll be immersing you into the world of FlutterFlow and give you all the background you need to understand how FlutterFlow works under the hood and what makes it such a unique yet powerful no-code app development platform. FlutterFlow is a low-code app development tool that actually writes code for you as you use its visual interface to drag and drop your app's components. It's a relatively new tool that's backed by Y Combinator that took a very unique approach as a code generating platform, rather than a platform that takes all the code away from you. It's becoming increasingly popular amongst non-technical people who want to build apps yet retain control over all of the project source code. This concept of retaining full control over the code is incredibly useful as your app grows, becomes more complex, and you're finally ready to hire that developer. In this lesson, we will learn why it's called FlutterFlow and what is Flutter, why is FlutterFlow unique compared to the rest of the no-code builders out there, and can you really build a successful, scalable app with FlutterFlow? We'll take a look at some successful apps that were actually built with Flutter and Firebase to instill more confidence in you as a builder that FlutterFlow is the right choice in building your app idea. Let's begin by learning why it's called FlutterFlow. Well, it's crucial to know that Flutter, which is part of the name of FlutterFlow, is actually an app development framework that was built and maintained by Google. But what is a framework? You can think of a framework as a toolkit. The Flutter framework is a set of tools that Google created for developers to create cross-platform apps. One of the tools included in the Flutter framework is a programming language called Dart, which can be compiled on iOS, Android, and web devices. When you use FlutterFlow to build an app, you're actually writing code under the hood, and the code you're writing is called Dart. When you're building an app in FlutterFlow, at any time you can navigate to the top here and click on View Code. Here's an example of what some Dart code looks like. So by learning FlutterFlow, you're essentially learning Flutter development, which is an incredibly powerful skill. Flutter's framework also ships with very powerful tools like Hot Reload. Hot Reload is what powers FlutterFlow's test simulator functionality, which allows you to test your code anytime you make a change without having to rebuild the whole app from scratch. Flutter inherently is a multi-platform language, and they initially designed it to be all mobile. But nowadays, with Google's recent news, Flutter is becoming increasingly optimized for web, so now has never been a better time to learn Flutter. You're learning one framework that can be applied to all platforms. FlutterFlow is built on top of the Flutter ecosystem, which means you get access to their entire community. Flutter exposes all of the underlying code to you, so that anytime you have an error or you need support, not only can you access the FlutterFlow community, but you can also tap into the worldwide network of Flutter. But I'm not sure if y'all know this one. The founders of FlutterFlow are actually ex-Google engineers. So I imagine they're very tapped in with the Google developer community, which is actually the largest developer community in the world. And that leads me to my next point. Can you build a successful and scalable app using FlutterFlow? What I'm about to tell you is an important mindset shift that you need to embody when committing to using FlutterFlow to build your app. You're not building a FlutterFlow app. You are in fact building a Flutter app. Flutter is not a new development framework. There are hundreds of thousands of apps that are powered by Google's technology stack, Flutter and Firebase. They both pair hand in hand and can support millions of users very easily. However, you should not even be thinking about your millionth user until you've captured at least your first 100, if not your first. To prove the scalability of Flutter and Firebase-powered apps, I put together 3 apps that are successful and generating revenue. The first one is an app that I built called Virally. Virally is an AI social media assistant that helps content creators generate content ideas, and they can take bite-sized courses to learn more about how they can go viral on TikTok and Instagram Reels. Virally is currently live on the App Store, and it's generating me a few $1,000s of income every month through in-app subscriptions that I sell using FlutterFlow's built-in Revenue Cat integration. The next app is an app called Genie. It's an AI chatbot that's powered by ChatGPT technology. This is an app built by App Nation Limited, who's actually a Flutter product studio. All the apps that they build are built in Flutter. And lastly, my BMW. BMW chose Flutter to build their mobile app for all their vehicle owners. And with 150,000 ratings, I think it's working well for them. So just to reiterate, when you choose FlutterFlow, you're building a Flutter app, which is a highly respected technology stack in the software engineering ecosystem. Let's talk about what makes FlutterFlow so powerful. There are many no-code builders out there, but each one of them are unique to the type of person it's looking to help. Every builder comes from a different background and will require different needs. Coincidentally, at Ambitious Labs, we coach just this. Competition is not a bad thing. It just means you need to differentiate your offering from others by identifying a specific type of person you want to cater to. Since no-code builders are a highly competitive market and there's so many out there to choose from, it's important to understand which one is good for which type of person. Most no-code tools were not designed for the developer because the fact of the matter is they were built for people to not need a developer. However, FlutterFlow took a unique approach in building the dream no-code tool for a developer. And I'll be honest, when I initially heard about no-code tools, as an opinionated developer, I was going to be very hard to impress because I knew that the level of control that I would need over building an app, I would need to have myself by having access to the underlying code. And most no-code tools didn't prioritize this need to access the underlying code. For example, if you use a tool like Softer or Bubble or Glide, they don't give you access to the code and you are locked into their platform. But many times that's okay because the product that you might be thinking of doesn't need a bunch of complex functionality. And if you're a startup builder just trying to validate an idea, sometimes those tools are the better way to go than using something slightly more advanced like FlutterFlow. A tool like Softer could get you to market much faster, but you just have to be okay with having limited functionality in your application. And when it does gain traction and hopefully get a ton of users, you'll have to be ready to rebuild it in a different framework. But let's talk specifically about FlutterFlow. FlutterFlow has 3 main advantages that I'm obsessed with. The first advantage is that it's optimized for mobile apps. Since it was built on the Flutter framework, FlutterFlow has really just taken all the options that are available in Flutter and brought them here in a beautiful interface. The second advantage of FlutterFlow is its built-in integrations with third-party services. For example, having access to Google Analytics ensures that I know how many people are using my app. The built-in integration with push notifications allows me to seamlessly set up push notification functionality so I can send messages to my users. Also, we have a one-click deploy to App Store feature, which is honestly my favorite because as a developer of over 10 years, I've spent months of my life just hand building apps for the App Store. And I'm so excited that it just takes one click to do it now in FlutterFlow. Lastly, if you want to monetize your app, there are integrations built in directly with Stripe, RevenueCat, and Braintree so that you can get any type of monetization off the ground. And third, it's access to the code. By having access to the code, we can implement any feature. There's nothing that's impossible. We can use FlutterFlow to quickly build our UI by its drag and drop interface. And then whenever we need to build something more complex, we can always export the code, integrate it, and push it back into FlutterFlow. Although it's slightly more advanced, you'll likely never even get there. And if you do, we're happy to help you at Ambitious Labs. If you ever run into any errors, since FlutterFlow is just showing you the Flutter errors, you can take that error string, put it in Google, and Google should be able to find you a Stack Overflow article because of how big the Flutter community is. Also, it's super easy to recruit developers because you just need to find a Flutter developer. And the learning curve for a Flutter developer is much less than someone who's building for the first time. So my favorite part about FlutterFlow, you can put together your MVP, and once your app gets to the point where it's scaling, it needs more features, and now you are better focused on the business, it's very easy to recruit a developer to take over from there. In conclusion, FlutterFlow was built initially for developers, but now they are quickly converging to the other side of the market who has no idea how to code. I think this was smart because if you were able to impress a developer like me, that means you've built all the features that a robust no-code tool would need. Now they're traversing to the other side of the market to help people who have no idea how to code. All right, that's enough talking. I hope I introduced you to FlutterFlow and gave you an in-depth understanding of its background and why it is so unique. In the next lesson, we're going to start building in FlutterFlow. I'll see you there.